What's up everybody, it's Robin Gaming here. So it's gonna be quite a special video, but obviously the timing was perfect for me to catch the flu. So I'm right in the middle of it as we speak. So if my voice sounds a little nasally or, I'm coughing during the video, then my apologies in advance. But a few weeks ago, I got a very special invite from Sony to go come check out the new God of War game on the PS4, which is obviously something I was very excited about, and I know many of you are too. And personally, I was very curious to see what the game itself would play out like, because I feel like even though I was excited for it, I didn't have a great sense of that yet, because they've done a great job at keeping things so much on the wraps, right? So I was curious to find out about that. I went together with Roberta to Amsterdam. We got to play the very first 2 opening hours of the game, which is quite a lot, where we would swap every 30 minutes basically. But like I said, in total it was 2 hours that I got to see, and the embargo wasn't gonna lift for a very long time, so it isn't until today that I finally get to talk with you about it, so I'm super excited to do so. But I will quickly say that there are not gonna be any story spoilers in this video, because I know some of you do not want to get anything more ruined, so I'll make sure to kind of just talk about the story in general terms. This video is simply going to be me sharing my thoughts on God of War so far, so let's get into it. I played 2 hours, like I said, and I walked away with 2 feelings basically. First of all, it was freaking awesome. Like, seriously, you do not have to worry. This game so far was fantastic. And I simply left thinking, I can't wait to see where the story is going to go, how the gameplay is going to be expanded upon, basically, right? Yeah, I really enjoyed myself so far. But at the same time, and that's the main thing, is that I was just thinking, man, it's crazy how different of a God of War game this really is. And that's the thing, is that I've seen a small group of diehard God of War fans that didn't necessarily like the direction this has been going into, right? Because it was very clear that it was gonna be something different. And I think some of those people are simply gonna end up not liking this game that much. It's something that you have to put yourself open to. I feel like Sony Santa Monica really felt like they had 6 God of War games now that all played out very similarly. And with this one, they wanted to do something else. They looked at a lot of the popular games nowadays, and they tried to, copy certain elements and kind of combine that with what they already had with God of War. The great myths and the lore and the gods and everything, right? And that's still there, obviously. The boss fights are still there. You don't have to worry about that. But the way it plays, the way the story is told, it's all just different from the old games. And again, put yourself open to that and you're no doubt gonna enjoy this. We're gonna have to wait and see, but this God of War might end up being even better than the previous ones. So, yeah, I just have a lot of high hopes coming from this demo. But like I said, it is very different. So let's get into these specifics. As far as the storytelling goes, we already know this, but it's a lot more personal. It's more emotional. It's more about the characters. Kratos and Atreus, his son, right? Previous God of War games would always open with an epic boss fight or something on a grand scale, right? Because at the end of the day, the action was at the forefront. That's what really mattered the most. The story wasn't maybe an afterthought, but it was definitely not as important as the action itself was. And this game kind of like turns that around, or makes the action and the story more even leveled. Because this one opens up with like the first half hour being very emotional, very impactful actually, a great scene that plays out. And it shows you immediately that that's what this game is going for. It's going for telling you a story that you're gonna care for actually, and it did a great job at that. But at the same time, you couldn't help but notice that they've taken some inspiration from, for example, the Naughty Dog games, right? Because the interaction with Kratos and Atreus just during regular gameplay sequences it's the same thing as Nate and Sully or Joel and Ellie. It's that same type of interaction, those dynamic conversations that happen, when you come across something new in the world. You can't help but be reminded of those games, which I don't think is a bad thing in the slightest. It's actually great, but again, it's a similarity that you immediately notice. Now, like I said, you don't have to worry. This game still is gonna have awesome boss battles. In fact, there was a huge half-hour sequence in this 2-hour demo that seemed like it was never ending basically, where I loved how it would transition from one scripted encounter to the next moment, how it would ultimately get to its climax. It was fantastic, no doubt. It's not one of those troll encounters or whatever that you saw in the E3 demo that was in the leaked gameplay as well. It was something different, like I said, something much bigger, but again, different from the other God of War games at the same time as well. It was great though. So when we then get to the gameplay, you'll also see that there some big changes have been made. And I think that I myself didn't really have a good sense of the controls yet, for example, what the game would play like, right? So let's actually talk about the controls. Instead of using the face buttons to attack, you now use the shoulder buttons. So it's R1 for a light attack, R2 for a heavy attack. L1 brings up the shield. You can also parry enemies, of course, like in the previous games. And with L2, you can aim the axe at a certain enemy. You then use R2 to, of course, throw your axe, and triangle to get it back. So that's what the triangle button is used, to get your axe back, basically. And you can do some really cool dynamic stuff with that. Like, for example, you throw your axe at one enemy, which will make him actually freeze in time. Finish off the second enemy with your fists or whatever, get the axe back, kill the first enemy that you fought, basically. And so, you know, again, there's some really cool stuff that you can do there. So Atreus also has a button assigned, which is the square button, and you can use that to stun or to confuse certain enemies. You'll see in the bottom right corner how many arrows Atreus has, and it automatically gets increased again over time. But especially in those huge encounters with the troll creature that you saw in the E3 demo, you know, it's really useful for Atreus to have him shoot an arrow at him to distract him, after which you get the opportunity to, you know, slash into him, because he has quite some health and he is quite an aggressive character. You're gonna have to dodge a lot of his moves, which you do with the X button. You can also double tap it to roll, and the circle button makes you interact with stuff. You can pick up objects like actually health and stuff, which is different from previous games as well. You pick up health objects actually. You can use it to climb or to jump, but again, those are specific designated scripted type of moments. You know, certain encounters where you're meant to jump or to climb. For example, you'll come across a gap in the environment, so you walk up to it, press circle, and Kratos will jump over it. It doesn't mean that you can jump in real time at any moment that you want to, but again, at specific moments during the game. L3 is used for sprinting, which is also new. R3 is used to lock onto characters, and you can also sometimes get a combo going, after which you use R3 for a special execution, which is pretty brutal. It still has a lot of brutality, don't worry about that, with Kratos kind of like completely ripping apart an enemy, and it's pretty crazy, but definitely satisfying, you know, to see him do that. But yeah, you know, again here with the whole control scheme and the combat in itself, it's more similar to the Souls type games, right? It's that similar button layout, using the shoulder buttons to attack, you're dodging, rolling, you're locking onto enemies. It's very similar to that, but at the same time, less unforgiving, of course, and faster, and with more dynamic to it with the axe. So, you know, I once again really enjoyed the combat, but it's something else for sure. So, speaking about using the axe in combat, you don't only use it there. I was actually very surprised with how integral of a part the axe itself plays, because you use it all around you in the environment as well, to solve certain puzzles, to get certain gates to open. There was a particularly cool puzzle that I came across where it was basically this rotating circle with different layers that were all rotating differently from each other. So what you would do is you would have a certain layer stand still in time by throwing the axe at it, after which you would kind of time it to line up with another layer of the circle, retract your axe basically, and then do that for every individual layer, which would ultimately give you a cool reward. So I liked that the way they used the axe in the environment, you know, in the full game, but it also makes me question, are you actually going to get other weapons in the game? There are rumors that you'll get the blades back, for example, or whatever, but yeah, if you do that, I'd imagine they'd have to design all the upcoming puzzles again around those weapons, because they played such a huge part, not only in the combat, but everything around it, like I said. So I'm curious to see how that will ultimately play out. The game also has a lot of RPG mechanics, so you'll actually see now that enemies have a health bar, which I think you can disable in the settings if you don't like it, but you also have fully customizable armor and weapons, which For example, if you have Kratos wear a different piece of armor, you're actually gonna visually see it make a difference. You'll see Kratos look different depending on the armor that you're wearing, basically. And with the axe, you can upgrade it to do more damage. You can apply certain runes to it that you find. There's like a merchant guy that you come across like 2 hours, you know, pretty much near the end of the demo. You came across him, I think, who can upgrade the axe for you. And it's likely that you'll come across guys like that every few hours during the game or something. So I'm also curious there to see how exactly, you know, that all plays out. There are still chests in the world, but the chests are used for different purposes. Not just to get health or something, but mostly to get resources, which you can, I think, use for crafting, but I'm not too sure about that. Some of these chests actually had a little puzzle attached to them. So, you know, a certain chest had like 3 different runes that it displayed, and you then have to find those runes in the environment, which I think Hellblade had a similar thing as well. Once you do that, you can open the chest, you get the reward from it, but that's all fully optional. You don't have to actually do that if you don't want to, so also pretty interesting. And, you know, there's a couple of things that I didn't really get to see too well, like the boats, for example. We know that the boat will play also an integral part in the game, but there was only a small 1-minute section that I got to play, but it seemed very straightforward. You basically just use the left stick to steer, and that was all that it came down to. It wasn't actually until I hit the touchpad that the map was brought up, and I realized, like, yeah, this world is going to be fully connected. 2 hours into it, I could completely see the path I had taken from beginning to where I was now, and the rest of the map was of course still completely grayed out, but it did make it clear that this world is going to be fully connected, like I said, again, inspired by something like the Tomb Raider games, for example, where I think Cory Barlog already confirmed you're gonna be able to backtrack to, you know, go back and collect some of the things that you missed out your first time through. I think you're gonna have to kind of beat the game for that though, because I wasn't able to backtrack whatsoever yet. But that seems like, you know, why would the world otherwise be connected if, you know, it's obvious to have a feature like that in there. Were there a couple of flaws? Yes, there still were. Something I noticed, which was kind of weird, and I wonder what's up with that. It might have been because it was an early build, or the TV settings were wrong, or maybe my mind was just deceiving me, but it seemed like even though the frame rate was consistent, it was a bit too choppy for my liking. I don't know, it seemed like it was a couple frames under the 30 frames even though, like I said, it was consistent, so I don't know what was up with that, but it's most likely something that the full game will actually fix. And I guess my biggest question really that I stayed behind with was, will the combat stay fun? Because, you know, even though I enjoyed it and there was some dynamic to it, it did stay very basic. And that's the thing, is that the game has a huge skill tree with moves to unlock and, as I said, different RPG elements to it, upgrades and stuff, but I didn't get to try those out yet. I only got to play 2 hours of the game, and you can imagine that, you know, 2 hours in, you simply haven't unlocked that much yet whatsoever. So I still have to see the full expansiveness of the combat system. But I'll only really get to see that until I play the full game myself. So that's a question that I can't answer for now yet. But at the end of the day, like I said, I walked away very positive from it though. I really had a blast with it. I was super interested by the story, and you know, I'm still curious right now to see where it's gonna lead. Gameplay wise, still have some questions like I said, but what has been shown so far is still, you know, awesome. It's different, but it keeps the brutalness. It's super satisfying. It's just more up close, and it's a different type of combat system. It's a different type of way in which it tells the story. But I was personally ready for that, you know, and so like I said, I'm very optimistic about the game. They've already convinced me that it's gonna be great. The only question is, how great is it actually gonna be? We're gonna have to wait and see until the game comes out. So for now, that's basically all that I could really say. They kind of ended me on a super stupid cliffhanger where I got to this beautiful, colorful environment. Won't talk about it any further. And like 1 minute into that, basically, where I felt like I wanted to see so much more, they said thank you for playing. So they left me on a cliffhanger wanting for more. I guess they did the same thing for you, hopefully, after watching this preview. So thank you all for tuning in and listening to what I had to say. If you have some further questions, then I'm going to be live streaming tonight on twitch.tv/robinoyo, and I'll now be fully able to answer any question that you would like to ask me. So If there's something I didn't touch on, don't hesitate to ask tonight in the live stream. Although, again, I won't really get into the spoilers though, for the people that care about that too much. So, yeah, all that leaves me to really say is that on Friday I'll most likely be starting my God of War Countdown series. So I'm also very excited to start that after I've kind of healed up from the flu now. So for now, thank you all for watching the video. Like I said, leave a quick like to help support my channel. And then I'd like to thank you a lot for watching and hope to see you again next time.